Hello everyone, Stormer1 here. Today we got a major flood threat that is expected late tonight and into tomorrow, and then we got a light snow chance that comes in on Sunday. We're going to get started with a watch warning advisory display across the country. It is still active out there. Got a lot of winter weather alerts across parts of the western part of the country and even across parts of the Midwest, the Great Lakes, parts of the Appalachian Mountains, and all the way up into the Northeast. A lot of winter weather alerts. But one of the big stories this week is going to be what's going on here in Kentucky. And that's going to be flooding. The county shaded in that dark green is a flood watch. And you can see here how it includes the entire state of Kentucky, most of Tennessee, back down into parts of Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and all the way up into southwestern Pennsylvania. So it includes a lot of real estate out there. And here's a closer look here. And you can see how that flood watch includes the entire state. You also see these light green shaped boxes kind of scattered throughout parts of Kentucky. These are river flood warnings that are out there. You're going to expect to see a lot more of those tomorrow and even going into Sunday, as a lot of them rivers out there is going to get to moderate flood stage, and even a couple rivers may even reach to major flood stage out there. So that's really one of the main concerns. And this river flooding is going to last for several days for some areas. River flooding may start, as early as tomorrow, but when all those rivers out there really start to kind of drain all the water, eventually it goes down to the bigger rivers like the Kentucky River, the Ohio River, and eventually the Mississippi River. The river flooding is going to stick around for several days for some areas in here, and some rivers may not reach to the crest level even a couple of days, maybe not until a couple of days after Saturday system gets out of here. So the river flooding issues is going to stick around for a while after this system here. Another thing we're concerned about is aerial flooding. This is where you have, basically standing water in low-lying areas out there. Now, flash flooding is going to be more isolated to scattered. It just depends on how much rain you get in a short amount of time. And basically, what flash flooding is that water rises along those creeks and streams at a pretty fast rate. That's flash flooding. Aerial flooding, it's just more of over time. It's just it collects more and more water over time in low-lying areas, and that's basically aerial flooding, and it can stick around for a while as well. And those are the type of floods, the flood types that we're most concerned with. Aerial, river, flash flooding, it's not going to be as common out there. Now, the flood watch in Western Kentucky is actually a little bit different. It's actually kind of a different type of flood watch in the National Service in Paducah viewing area, which would include Hopkinsville, Madisonville, Paducah, Owensboro, Mayfield, all in those areas in there. And you can see here the wording here. You can see here what it says. Significant and widespread flash flooding caused by excessive rainfall continues to be possible. This is a particularly dangerous situation. What that means, particularly dangerous situation in short, is PDS. So this is basically a PDS flood watch. Now, PDS flood watches are very rare. I cannot remember the last time Kentucky having a PDS flood watch out here. And it's rare by itself across the country. It's one of the rarest types that a National Service office can really issue. So this kind of gives you an idea of how serious this situation could very well be. Now, not exactly everybody's going to get, major flooding, but a large chunk of areas will. I mean, you're talking about a swath of 4 to 6 inches of rain with the potential for rainfall amounts that could be pushing 7, maybe even close to 8 inches in western Kentucky. So that's why you have a PDS watch out there, because not only you're talking about high numbers, but it's also pretty widespread as well for those 4 to 6 inch amounts out there. And this is the Weather Prediction Center's excessive rainfall outlook, or their flash flood forecast. And they've upgraded Western Kentucky to a high risk out there. That includes Bowling Green, E-Town, and Point Southwest. And if you were to ask me, do I agree with the placement of the high risk? Yes, but this probably needs to be expanded to the northeast. If I were to expand this to the northeast, I would include these areas in here, because these areas up here can also see 4 to 6 inches of rain, just like down here in Western Kentucky. And some of the latest model data proves that fact, which I'll show you guys here actually here in a minute. But I want to talk a little more in depth about these high-risk days, because high risk from the Weather Prediction Center in terms of the flooding is actually very rare. High risks are only issued by the Weather Prediction Center on 4% of days. But high-risk days have accounted for a third of all flood-related fatalities. So 36% of flood-related fatalities have occurred on high-risk days. 21% of those happen in moderate-risk days. 36%, that's a pretty decent number. But it gets even crazier. They've also been accounting for 4/5 of all flood-related damages. 80%. Moderate, 6%. So basically what this is telling you is that if you're in a high risk, the impacts would definitely be very significant, and even for some areas could be catastrophic. High risk days have proven to be, very accurate by the Weather Prediction Center. Rarely I see them miss on high risks, type of days. I mean, they are rare by itself, but when they're out there, usually they verify, as it says. And you can see here, historically, high risk days, have been accounted for the majority of damages across the country, and even a large chunk of fatalities. And high risks are rare here in Kentucky as well. In the last 8 years, we've only seen 4 high risk days in the last 8 years. So we haven't seen many. And all of the high risk days that we've had, in the last 8 years, those 4 were very significant and catastrophic here in Kentucky. So basically what this is trying to tell you is that do not mess around tomorrow. Don't let your guard down. Don't do any of that. High risk days are serious days, and they are a big deal. It's something to take seriously. And like I was saying earlier, that is probably going to get expanded to the northeast, and I'll show you guys why here in a minute. But here's the 12Z run of the rainfall mounts. So this is an older run. This is a run from this morning. You can see here it's got an area of 4 to 6 inches of rain, kind of from the western bluegrass towards Louisville and Point Southwest. Goes down towards, west central Kentucky. You got this swath here of 4 to even pushing 6 inches of rain. If you see that much rain, expect major flooding issues. Okay? But then again, this is an old run. This is a 12Z run. Let me show you guys the newer run, the 18Z run. You'll see here we're going the wrong direction here. You can see that 4 to 6 inch swath is much bigger, covers a much larger area, and not only you got 4 to 6 inches of rain out there showing up, but you also got locally higher amounts pushing over 6 inches of rain. So basically the new HRRR model, or the newer run of the HRRR model, would support an expansion to the northeast of the high risk. Okay? But why is there a difference between the 12Z run and the 18Z run? Why is there such a difference? Especially in central Kentucky. I mean, if you go to Lexington, the old run had 3.6 inches for Lexington. Newer run, 5.3. That's a huge jump. Why is there a big difference? Well, let me show you guys the low pressure system. Because the placement of the low pressure system and the intensity matters. This was the run this morning. This is an older run. This is Saturday afternoon, late in the afternoon. If you want to be more specific, 999 millbar low over the tri-state of Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, pretty close to Evansville. But what about the newer run? Big difference. It's a little weaker. It's 1,000 millbar low, but the low placement's all the way down into northwestern Tennessee. So some people may be a little bit confused because some people think that stronger storm systems make the weather worse. There is some truth to that, but in this particular setup, that's not quite the case, because the thing about the placement of the low pressure system, with it being farther south, that warm front is not going to be able to go as far to the north. If anything, the warm front becomes a little more stationary for a longer period of time, which in this case here, it's got that warm front becoming nearly stationary, from west central Kentucky through, journeying along the western BG parkways and eventually along and just north of 64 east of Lexington. Okay, those areas there is the area that'd be most concerning, because the heaviest of the rain is going to be closer to the warm front. Along and just north of the warm front is where the heaviest rain is going to be, the higher rainfall rates. That is where you're going to see the greatest concern on those higher end rainfall totals. But with a stronger and farther north low, the warm front is going to be a little bit farther north. If I were to continue this, you'll see where that warm front kind of starts to stall out. If we go to tomorrow night here, you can see you got 996 millbar low over Indianapolis, and the warm front stalled out, over Cincinnati. Okay, if we were to go to the newer run of the HRRR, I'll keep that warm front placed in front of the old run. So let's just say this is the old run. So old up here, we'll change the color. Let's do it in pink, and let's go to tomorrow night. So this is at the same time, but with a newer run. You see the low pressure system placement is now in south central Indiana. It's just northwest of Louisville. But look where the warm front is. It didn't move around that much across the Bluegrass region. It's still over the same area. From, E-Town through Lexington to Ashland. So basically with a weaker and a farther southern track, that warm front doesn't move as much to the north. It becomes more stationary as that low pressure system moves closer and it moves across the Ohio Valley. So basically that would be the worst case scenario, especially areas along the parkways, Bluegrass region, and of course most of western Kentucky where we got that high risk at. Those areas can see anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of rain, with locally higher amounts being possible. We got a ton of moisture in our atmosphere. Not only we're getting moisture from the Gulf, but we're also getting moisture from the Eastern Pacific. With that type of combination, you would expect very high moisture values. And one way to measure moisture in your atmosphere is something that's known as precipitable water. And what that is that it's a way to measure the amount of moisture in your atmosphere. And you're going to see some pretty high numbers for this time of year. And you'll see numbers where it reaches climatology standards to its max. So this is basically the maximum amount of moisture that you can possibly see for the month of February. And right now it's pretty dry, but you can see how that moisture there increases throughout the night. But when you start to see these numbers here get above 1 inch with the precipitable water, okay, now you get some pretty decent rain. But as that surface low starts to move into Kentucky, you can see where those precipitable water values now go up to 1.5 inches, which is an indication of a very high amount of moisture. If you get values around 1.5 inches up here, that's a very high amount of moisture up here. And those storms that would be around with that type of precipitable water, it would be pouring down rain. Very heavy rain would be falling. And the heaviest rain would be near the surface low, near or around the surface lows where the heaviest rain is going to be. So basically, for Western Kentucky, the heaviest rain will probably be late afternoon tomorrow, and then out towards Central Kentucky, it's going to be more in the evening into a little bit into tomorrow night. So, let me also show you guys something else here. So let's go back to 21Z here. I want to get a forecast outing in Western Kentucky. Here's another way of looking at how much moisture you got in the atmosphere. This is another way of looking at it, and it's about looking at the skew T out here. So basically, if the green line, which is your dew point line, is on top or very close to the red line, which is the dew point line, basically you got the maximum amount of moisture that you can have. And you can see here how you basically got the maximum amount of moisture you could possibly have from the surface all the way up to 300 millibars. So we're basically got a crap ton of moisture. Moisture values are very high. There is no shortage on moisture whatsoever. In the showers and storms that come through with this type of amount of moisture, it would be pouring down rain. It won't take much instability to get a lot of rain, which in this case here, it's actually got some elevated instability. So you get a few rumbles of thunder in there as well. And speaking of storms, there will be the potential for some stronger storms across parts of southern Kentucky. If I were to go to the reflectivity here, to kind of give you guys a little bit of a better perspective here, this kind of shows the thunderstorms a little bit better on reflectivity. As that surface low moves across western Kentucky, you're going to notice a skinny line of heavy rain or some storms south of the surface low. That's where the strong severe storm potential comes into play. Those will be the storms that would have potential to produce strong to maybe locally damaging winds out there. I'll show you guys the SPC outlook here in a minute, but here's this rain here coming through. But as that surface low moves into western Kentucky, here's that line that we're talking about here, and this is going to be a long line of storms as well. It goes from western Kentucky through western Tennessee all the way down into Louisiana, so it's a very long squall line out there. And the bigger severe weather threat will likely stay south of Kentucky, but there may be just enough instability to get some stronger storms in the south central Kentucky, which you can see this line of some stronger storms maybe getting as far north as like maybe Lebanon or Washington County, maybe even Mercer County. But the greatest opportunity to see some stronger storms would probably be down in this area in here, basically across most of south central Kentucky. Main threat would be some stronger wind gusts out there. Now there is going to be a ton of wind shear out there, which will keep the storms organized, but instability will be a limiting factor. And this is the SPC outlook here for tomorrow, and they got that marginal risk extending as far north as E-Town, Bardstown, Willisburg, Harrodsburg, and kind of backing down towards Richmond and down towards Barberville and Middlesboro, and basically those areas and points south and west. Is areas in the marginal risk. And I agree with the placement here. But you can obviously see where the greatest risk of severe weather is going to be. There's an enhanced risk across southeastern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, most of Mississippi, parts of western Alabama, and southwestern Tennessee. There's even a chance for strong tornadoes down there in that hatched area. But speaking of the tornado risk, you do notice that 2% tornado risk for parts of southern and western Kentucky out there. Given by the amount of wind shear we'll have, we cannot rule out a quick spin of tornado, but we're not talking about long track, strong tornadoes. Conditions may just barely favor for a quick, weak spin up tornado out there. And if we do see a tornado, it will be weak and short lived. But the main threat is going to be some strong, potentially locally damaging winds. There might be some hail out there, but I'm not anticipating much hail out of those storms out there. And one more model to look at in terms of rainfall. This is the rapid refresh here, and you can see here a pretty similar look to the HER model in terms of those rainfall amounts out there, general 4 to 6 inches. Now you do notice in southeastern Kentucky the amounts have actually downtrended. The main reason why is that you actually get a break from the rain. Some areas across south central southeastern Kentucky, may be able to get a few hours with no rain. So that'd be good news. And probably, in my opinion, southeastern Kentucky is probably the most vulnerable area for flooding right now because they've been waterlogged for the last week or so, and you also got mountainous terrain down there. Western Kentucky is not as vulnerable for the rain, but I've seen some pictures of those rivers out there. Some of those rivers are running pretty darn high right now, and I'm pretty concerned about it. So basically, just to sum everything up, where that swath of 4 to 6 inches of rain is going to be, I think it's going to be, let's see here. I think that 4 to 6 inch swath of rain is going to be right in here. So this is to be the area of the greatest opportunity seeing 4 to 6 inches of rain. It's the areas that I've circled in black. These are areas that would also have to watch for major flooding. And there will be some areas that may be able to exceed 6 inches of rain. I think the better opportunity for that will probably be back down towards western Kentucky where we got a little bit more moisture. Plus you got the surface low overlapping the area. So you're going to get some heavier downpours down there compared to up towards the Bluegrass region as well. And like I said, that high risk is probably going to get expanded northeast on the next update, especially if these type of trends continue. And the HER model's got quite a bit of support. It's got support from, the rapid refresh like you see here. It's also got support from the Euro and also the high-risk Canadian, the Icon model. So there's some pretty good agreement. The models that don't really agree as much is the NAM family, but those models got convective feedback issues. It's keeping the low pressure system tracking too far to the north or west. It's also too strong. That's why I didn't show those models today, because I think they're going to be wrong. But bottom line is, be prepared for flooding, especially for areas in the 4 to 6 inch zone. If you are in the high risk and even the moderate risk for excessive rainfall from the Weather Prediction Center outlook, which I'll go back to it. So these areas that are red, and especially in the pink area, be prepared for flooding. Be prepared, especially if you live in a flood-prone area. If you live in a flood-prone area, get your safety plans ready to go. Be prepared for the worst. Get your safety plans, evacuation plans, get all that in order. Just be prepared. If you're prepared, you'll be fine. And I mean, it's just simple as that. As long as you're prepared for this system, you will be fine out there. And one last thing, almost forgot. One last thing before I go, and that's Sunday, as that system there does depart Kentucky, we're going to get some strong northwest winds, winds that could be approaching 25 to 35 miles an hour. Counter out some 40 mile an hour gusts, but I think we're talking about wind gusts generally 25 to 35 miles an hour. That could cause some tree damage out there. With the very saturated grounds, you may get some trees that may come down, may take down some power lines out there. So some isolated power outages could be possible out there. So that's another thing to think about. But this is also a cold wind, so any leftover moisture back there will likely be in the form of snow. And I do expect some snow flurries and snow showers to fly around across central and eastern Kentucky throughout most of the day. I cannot rule out some light accumulations. I'm not really expecting any issues on the roads, probably until Monday morning, where temperatures drop in the teens. Could be some black ice out there, as some roads could still be wet out there, so that's going to be something to watch out for as well. And then again, talking about snowfall accumulations, I mean, you may be talking about coating to maybe close to an inch of snow, but then again, it's not going to amount to much out there. But I think the best opportunity for some light accumulations would probably be in these areas right in here. You got that connection from Lake Michigan, which always adds a little bit of extra moisture in here in the parts of central and eastern Kentucky. So yeah, could be some snow flying around. And then, by the way, winter does stick around. We may not even get above freezing off next week. And there's another system to watch for Tuesday through Thursday of next week that can bring more snow. But anyways, guys, this all got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really like my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys get any questions, you can put in the comment section down below. I just got questions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.